You really think someone'd want you, Dina? Fat girls don't belong behind a butcher counter or anywhere outside a bakery. The laugh that followed Greer's words split the dimness of Rossi's butcher shop like a crowbar through bone. The insult hit on a day already sodden with sleet and the old habit of trying to tuck her big frame out of the way. Customers' eyes flickered away as Greer, slick with aftershave and arrogance, shouldered past and appended a pan of bloodied shank scraps, spill painting the sawdust, icy seeping into her shoes. Dina steadied the mess-practiced hands, keeping everything together where her voice nearly trembled. Her cheeks flushed hot, then cold. She could feel someone watching from behind the towering glass meat case, a tall silhouette cast into stretch and shadow by the cruel red of the neon, Rossi's prime cuts flickering outside against the storm. Eyes on her, she thought, not Greer's, not her own reflection, but heavier. Weight that measured. She dared a glance, and the owner of the shop's newest headache stepped forward, sharply dressed, dark eyes, gold watch catching the meat case light. This was Don Luca Caruso, South Philly's rising mafia boss. He didn't blink when the blood hit her boots. Greer, he murmured, voice so smooth you didn't hear the steel until it cut. The bell above the butchery door hadn't stopped chiming from Greer's exit before Luca Caruso claimed the faded tile with two of his own men. Each man loomed, shoulders hunched against drizzle, eyes unblinking, one clutching a gloved hand to a broken nose, the other with deliberate menace in the collar of his coat. Dina counted her breaths as she scraped the meat scraps back into place, careful not to let her hands shake. "Miss Rossi," Luca's words moved more air than his steps. He took in the shop with a surgeon's pause, sawdust-stained pink, the rhythm of the grinder in the back, the old family portrait over the register. But it was Dina he watched, thick arms forearmed in a grooved apron, still broad-hipped in the narrow back room mirror, not making herself small anymore. "That's your name, Dina." His stare rested longer than custom demanded. She dried her hands on a dish towel, one she always folded exactly in quarters as her mother did. "Yes, sir, I'm sorry for the mess. I try to keep things in order, but sometimes—" The hint of apology slipped out before she could smother it. He shook his head, a trace of cold amusement. "It's not your mess," his gaze lingered. "Your hands, they're steady." He let silence stand as a verdict. "The big enforcer, Tony," snorted with a thread of old malice. "Don Caruso here, he likes precision," he said, voice nasal from the busted nose. "Maybe not as much as you." Dina braced herself, but all Luca did was address her, tone low. "You handled that well, few do." The compliment, gravelly and crisp, fed something lonely in her. She tried not to smile, barely managing, then offered the tray of cutlets she'd just salvaged. "For your dinner party, sir, I start with the choicest pieces for your order every Friday." Luca didn't touch the tray, but he let his gaze flick from Dina's hands to her soft jaw, then to her eyes. "You remember every cut, him?" She nodded, more confidence under his look. "I know what people will want, or what they need, even if they won't say it." A short silence, his jaw flexed. Mine flashed the thought in his mind. It startled him how fiercely it landed. He reached for a cloth square beside her and handed it across. "Don't let anyone mark you." Tony and the other man exchanged glances, uncertain whether the boss meant the wet blood on her boots or Greer's earlier words. But the certainty in the boss's voice rooted Dina to the ground. The next Monday, with the butcher shop closing, it happened again, a customer's order lost, tempers running thin, and the city's dirt swept beneath the neon. Greer crashed through the door after dark, a small crowd trailing behind. This time he didn't just insult, he brought witness, making sure everyone saw him swagger toward the counter. "See, this is what you get when you let the chubby girl run your shop. She's probably eaten the paperwork too. Find me a real butcher, why don't you?" He smacked the register, sending coins scattering to the floor. Someone in the crowd stifled a laugh. Dina felt the urge to shrink. Moonlight etched her silhouette behind the case, a shape too wide for small minds. Before she could gather herself, Greer lunged for the cutlet press, pressing hard enough to jam it, then seized a boning knife from the holder and waved it high. "You want to play with the big boys, Dina?" he mocked, tipping the blade so it caught tinny strips of fluorescent glow. "Or are you going to hide behind your meat hooks and sprinkles?" She swallowed, knuckles white on the counter edge. "Sir, put it down, you're making a scene." He leered, pushing even closer. What are you gonna do? Call your dead daddy. The crowd's uncomfortable shuffle rippled through the bones of the shop. Just as Greer advanced, a new voice cut through, a command like an axe through wood. Step away. The effect froze the crowd, Don Caruso with both bodyguards flanking. He didn't need to raise his voice. His enforcers fanned out, one Tony eyeing Greer as if ready to finish what Dina's meat tenderizer started last week. Caruso's got himself a pet butcher now, Greer sneered. Didn't peg you for the type who likes them hearty. Luca turned to his men. No one lays a hand on her, ever. Greer, I'll give you one chance to walk out. Greer huffed, swishing the knife. Or what? You'll let her show you how she handled my knee? He grinned crooked, the echo of pain in his gait as he shifted. Tony's hand twitched, the other man eyed the crowd. Somewhere outside, tires shrieked in the rain, a flash of headlights, a fast car moving slow, time pressing. Luca checked his phone just once, thumb flicking across a coded message. We're out of time, rival crews moving tonight. Dina's stomach lurched at the words. But when Greer jabbed the flat of the blade an inch from her belly, Dina didn't flinch. She looked him right in the face. Last warning, her voice cut controlled, put it down. Greer's laugh died the moment Luca stepped between them, one swift movement pushing Greer back just enough. He turned to Dina, eyes raking over her, reading more in the way she gripped the knife block than she herself imagined. He spoke softly, pitched only for her. Was he always like that, or is tonight special? Her answer was a tired half-smile. He's always had something to prove. When my father owned this place, Greer was just a punk who ran numbers for the old Irish. He tried to shake me down after the funeral, thought the new butcher would scare easy. Did you? Luca asked, voice patient, lingering. His hand, surprisingly gentle, took the knife from her hand and set it down far from Greer's reach. I did that first week, not anymore. Her voice shook only a breath. Tony, silent for once, posted by the walk-in freezer, phone vibrating in his pocket. He handed it straight to Luca. A text, 6 blocks over, rival syndicate men were sighted prowling for a meeting. Luca pressed his palm to the small of Dina's back. Not a question this time, a move. Get your coat, you're not staying here tonight. Dina hesitated. You'll miss the delivery. You said you need those ledgers for the accounts, the ones Dad kept. He only glanced at her, expression iron under the hint of something else. Anything in this shop you need, you get it now. Tony scowled, but the boss's word was law. Dina snagged the safety deposit key from under the counter, then Luca led her into the office, its walls lined with old receipts, family calendars, and the echoing stomp of their urgency. Behind them, the storm intensified, thunder in the freezer's hum. Tony locked the front door behind them. In the refuge of the office, Dina folded her arms, eyes turning wary. I'm not a liability, she whispered. Luca faced her. No, you're just smarter than anyone here lets on. His gaze flicked over her as if branding a vow. His hand brushed her hair from her brow. She startled but didn't pull away. Light bled in from the hallway, bright enough to ask everything without words. He asked it anyway. You always fold the towels into squares, you always use the ledger in red ink. Why? She shrugged, voice small. It's easier to see errors that way, patterns stand out. He nodded, I notice. A car horn split the rain. Tony's phone buzzed again, now insistent. It's not safe, Don Caruso, Tony warned. Luca didn't move. We go now. He pulled Dina into the dim hallway, hand steady at her back, the signet ring on his knuckle pressing the reassurance she didn't know she needed. The danger wasn't gone, it was waiting, closer, growing with every second. She was leaving her shop but brought her skill, her memory, and her father's keys with her as shields. Inside Luca's bulletproof black sedan, her first time in anything fancier than a rusty pickup, they sped through puddled alleys under the quicksilver wash of city lights. Tony rode up front, the second enforcer behind Dina, pistol resting on thigh. They stopped in front of a warehouse cut into the bones of the city's old port. The war room, Tony called it. Here, maps of South Philly gangs layered the walls and a chilled draft pulsed from a walk-in freezer in the rear. Dina lingered in the threshold. Rival mobsters, faces blurred beneath the fluorescent buzz, clustered on the other side of the long steel prep tables. The Irish syndicate's captain, red-headed, thick-fisted, smile-sharp, sat beside a duffel of unmarked bills. One of them muttered in rapid Gaelic, brow knotted over a set of numbers in her father's ledger. Dina's ears pricked, the language came back like blood scent. The man was not just angry, he was directing the traitor by name, Greer. She nudged Luca's sleeve. They're expecting Greer to deliver something, he isn't just a nuisance. Tony sneered, Greer and the Irish doesn't surprise me. The red-headed captain slammed the ledger. Your butcher, she's been hiding the accounts, we want what belongs to us. The mobsters moved to crowd her, flashing weapons, threat-heavy in their posture. Dina stepped forward, shoulders squared. She spoke back to them in flawless Gaelic, tracing her finger down the page. You missed this, here, the pattern's been there for years. The room fell silent. The captain's smile faltered, you speak. She understands more than you think, Luca said, dangerous pride slipping through. Keep talking. The Irishman lunged. Tony caught his shoulder, wrenching him back. The third-party witness, the rival's own bookkeeper, stared at Dina, all blooming. No way. She's right, he admitted, finger trembling on her mark. Greer, they called him O'Malley on Fridays, he's the mole. Dina's pulse pounded, clarity vivid as blade on marble. He's using the butcher shop's deliveries to ferry information. There's a drop planned tonight, that's why the ledger is missing pages. Luca's look turned molten, admiration eclipsing suspicion. Handle her with respect, or you'll answer to me. In front of every syndicate thug, he stepped close, hand cupping Dina's jaw, lifting her chin so the entire room could see who held his trust. A collective hush fell. Tony cuffed the Irish captain. Dina watched as the crowd's hatred for her morphed, finally, into respect and something harsher, fear. Greer, caught in the crossfire as the back door crashed open, was dragged by Caruso men by the scruff, yelping. No longer the man with a knife, now only a worm wriggling on a hook. By sunup, the syndicate crisis was stamped down, Irish captain sent to the feds in exchange for immunity, Greer handed over to law and zipped lips and broken pride. The traitorous web ripped open, its poison drawn. Back at the butcher shop, Luca walked Dina through the threshold as if parading a queen into her kingdom. Rain washed the windows, neon a softer pink. Tony was there, white towel over thick arm, head bowed. Shop's yours, boss, he joked, voice half in awe. Don Caruso says you make the rules. Dina squared her shoulders, heavy frame unbending under the new weight of command. The capos called her Miss Rossi now. The sharpest butcher's knife gleamed beside her ledger, both respected, neither to be trifled with. Luca wrapped an arm around her waist, drawing her close enough for every underling to see. They'll know you answer to nobody but yourself, Dina. She slid the signet ring from his fingers and pressed it into his palm, then leaned in, baring her throat to the shop's quiet. I've never belonged to anyone, she said, voice steady, and I won't start now. He laughed, a low, battered sound, as if savoring a rare flavor. Then let's belong to each other, decide who eats and who disappears. Dina just smiled, broad and certain. From now on, only the worthy stay fed. If you loved this story, do me a favor. Hit like, tap subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a queen's rise. The shop unlocked with the familiar scrape of its battered key. But now when Dina entered, her steps carried authority that rang out with every heel upon the cracked tile. She noticed silences where jeers used to fester. The sullen hush of men who used to laugh at her, replaced by nervous glances and quietly uttered greetings. Rain glazed the street outside, but inside a hush of expectation hung, even as morning customers shuffled in, craving their pound of brisket. Tony manned the counter in pressed slacks and a kitchen apron almost comically tight on his brawler's chest, the sight enough to eke a hesitant smile from Dina's lips. You really took to this, she said, amused. Tony shrugged, tossing a cutlet with expert casualness. Been a long time since anyone trusted me with knives. Caruso thought I'd bleed out all over the floor. I prefer sirloin. Dina laughed despite herself, the sound echoing clean. She reached under the counter for her ledger, the worn, red-inked pages now chronicling not only deliveries but quiet deceptions and debts repaid. Her fingers found the place she'd marked the night before, the day her world hanged, and then righted again along a sharper edge. Luca appeared in the doorway as if conjured by her thoughts. Today he wore no overcoat, no bodyguard shadowing his steps. Just crisp shirt sleeves, a gold chain at his collar, and the half-smile that always risked softening into tenderness. "You slept?" he asked. His concern was almost more than she could carry. She answered by sliding a fresh loaf of sourdough across the counter toward him. "If I hadn't, you'd have noticed. You watch everything." He accepted the bread, tearing a small piece and tipping it in salute. "Tony says you scared off the union muscle at 5 this morning. Word gets out fast." A customer entering the shop, a grandmother with curlers still in her hair, stepped back at the sight of Luca, gaze flicking to his watch, his eyes. "You're the one people talk about." "Only when he's buying brisket," Dina reassured her, flashing her most professional smile. The old lady grinned, warmth thawing the tension until the shop, for a moment, felt like home again. As the morning rush receded, Luca pulled Dina aside near the window, city dust running in streams down the glass. "You can leave, you know," he told her quietly. "You cleaned house, you could go anywhere." Dina studied his face, saw the question hidden in the offer. "And do what Don Caruso, bake bread for strangers, lose myself with everyone whose name I can't write in my ledger." Her hand, thick-fingered and steady, encompassed the view from butcher case to cutting block to the portrait of her father on the wall. "This place is mine, but so am I. You want me to stay, ask me as myself, not your prize." His thumb swept the knuckles of her hand, his own ringless now. "Dina, I'm not here to own you, I want to stand with you. This city," his voice lowered, "needs someone who remembers how to feed people, and how to make them afraid." She leaned in, the intimacy of negotiation crackling between them. "As long as I can send the rats out with the sawdust, I'll run this place, but you have to let me." He nodded, solemn, but his mouth crooked. "Wouldn't dare cross you, your aim with a cleaver's legendary now." A knock at the back alley door interrupted, the coded knock of Caruso's crew. Tony peered out, then gestured them in. "Words out," he announced, voice gruff but gleaming with a satisfaction that suggested his broken nose still stung less than his pride. "Greer's out on bail, Irish want to make nice, call off the heat, some union boys too." Dina felt a flicker of old fear at Greer's name, but it dissolved, replaced with the fire that had saved her. "They want something, or they want another shot at rattling my shop." It wasn't a question. Tony shrugged. "Both. Caruso says they want peace." Luca's eyes narrowed, but Dina's gaze was already set, unyielding. "Set the meeting here. If they're unwise, they'll remember why their last attempt failed." Tony nodded like he'd expected no less. Luca watched her, just watched, the way a general watches another at the head of an army. "I'll stand behind you." "No, Don," she said, voice playful but steel-threaded. "You'll stand beside me." He bowed his head, the closest thing he gave to a vow. That afternoon, with steel sky outside and the shop aglow in butcher-bright fluorescence, they prepared for the meeting. Dina sharpened every knife and lined her station with exacting care. She instructed Tony to bring only their smallest enforcer, a thin woman named Carla with a soft smile and a gun up her sleeve. "Do you want the cleaver for show?" Luca inquired with a trace of mischief as he watched her dry and re-dry her favorite blade. "Display only," she replied, voice demure. "But I want the account ledger open right in front of them. Let them see how every deal, every theft, every debt gets written down." As dusk lowered itself over South Philly, Greer slouched into the shop, union muscle trailing, suit lapels wrinkled, eyes darting, beer sweat sharp in the air. The Irish captain, no longer so sharp since his men had been handed over to the feds, came next, hat in hand. They eyed the arrangement. Luca on one end of the counter, Tony and Carla flanking, and Dina planted directly behind the butcher block, ledger spread, pen at the ready. Greer tried bravado. "So, Butcher, you calling the shots now?" She looked him up and down without flinching, The city called, it wants my cuts, not your scraps. Her voice was thunder. Greer's grin faltered. The Irishman gestured awkwardly as if to offer peace. We have business, Miss Rossi. Might be time to tidy old grievances. Grievances? She echoed, flipping a page. You paid my father in cash, then skimmed from the union accounts via Greer for 6 years. The debt is owed, and the reckoning is mine. The union muscle shifted, awaiting a sign. Dina tapped her ledger. There will be no violence in this shop tonight. You can speak, but you do not threaten. Orders are made and debts are settled. No one else gets hurt. Greer sneered, or what? You'll set your boyfriend on us. There was a desperation now, the bravado battered thin. Dina answered by turning the ledger to face all of them. Everyone in this room gets a number, a debt owed or a balance repaid. The only way forward is honesty. Greer, your days of hiding behind men stronger than you done. Your options are to pay what you owe or leave this city for good. Luca smiled, silent but deadly assurance radiating from his easy stance. Tony flexed his bruised fist, eager for a signal but holding fast by Dina's will. The old Irishman sighed. You're your father's girl, he admitted grudgingly. All right, we pay what is owed, protection and business as it was meant. No more side deals, no more threats. And Greer, Dina's eyes drilled into the man, pinning him in place. The Irishman eyed him, then nodded to Carla, who stepped forward and relieved Greer of a small envelope, money, forged licenses, and a single switchblade. He's not our problem anymore. Dina's eyes held Greer's. You see that door? She asked softly. Walk out, do not come back. For a moment, Greer hesitated, defiance fighting with new knowledge of his insignificance. He sagged, defeat palpable, and slunk toward the exit. Carla shadowed him outside, pistol loose at her hip. The Union men followed, muttering. The Irish lingered, then decided they'd lost the field. After the last echo of footfalls faded, only Luca, Tony, Carla, and Dina remained. The bell above the door jangled with finality. Silence pressed in around them as thunder passed, rain finally gone. Dina exhaled, a weight sliding from her shoulders. It's over. Carla grinned, tucking the envelope into her blazer, queen of the butchers. Tony barked a laugh. Hell, I'd buy from you even if you didn't keep the boss fed. Luca pulled her close, his hands warm on her arms. His confidence, never a question, now melded to respect. You held the line, you ended the blood. No one else could have done that, Dina, not with a cleaver or a gun, but with a ledger, with your voice. Dina looked around her shop, the floor clean, the knives gleaming, the portrait of her father aglow in soft neon. I never hated this place, she confessed. Not even when I was small and afraid, I just never thought it could belong to me. Luca lowered his head, kissing her forehead. You make it belong just by standing in it. She smiled against his chest. You talk like a poet. All butchers are poets when the cut is true, Tony said, winking. They celebrated that night somewhere between joy and exhaustion. The city was safer, at least, for a few days, and every rat and viper who thought to make prey of a butcher's daughter had learned to fear her instead. Luca lingered with her until the stars blinked over the city, helping her mop the last blood from the tile, hands moving together in practiced rhythm. When he asked her, "So what next?" Dina only smiled and pressed into his arms, feeling the sure fit of his body, the promise of tomorrow. Next, we open for business and we feed the hungry, only the worthy mind. Her eyes sparkled. Tony watched them from the back, whistling a happy tune. Carla curled up reading receipts and keeping one eye on the street. The bell over the door rang early before dawn, and a neighborhood woman, one who'd never dared enter before, poked her head inside. You serving today, Miss Rossi? Dina grinned, apron tied, cleaver in hand. Always, ma'am, you want the good cut. The woman smiled, relief apparent. I hear only the good cuts come from here now. Dina's heart swelled. She sliced a ribeye and laid it on brown paper, weighing it out, her hands steady and proud. As the neon sign hummed, the city outside beaten clean by rain, Dina knew all at once her father was proud. That the future was sharp and red and fragrant as pepper and fat. She had won her kingdom. And she would rule it, not with fear but with her hands, her wits, and beside her, the only man who dared sharpen a knife at her side. She'd make sure the worthy were always fed, the rest could starve.